However, after thorough research, no such direct exchange or confrontation between Crockett and Thompson occurred. There is no record of a hearing where Crockett cornered Thompson with repeated questions about the exact CBO number, leading to him reluctantly admitting $30 billion or struggling with deflections about fiscal responsibility, Trump-era debt, or his district SNAP usage. Key facts from 2024 Farm Bill debates. The Republican-led House Agriculture Committee, chaired by Glenn Thompson, advanced a Farm Bill proposal H.R. 8I-4-567, the Farm, Food, and National Security Act of 2024 in May 2024. A major controversy was a provision limiting future updates to the USDA's Thrifty Food Plan TFB, which determines SNAP benefit levels. The Congressional Budget Office CBO scored this as reducing SNAP spending by approximately $30 billion over 10 years, often cited as $27-30 billion depending on baseline adjustments. Republicans, including Thompson, argued this was not a cut, but a cost-neutral reform to prevent future administrations from arbitrarily increasing benefits, referring to a 2021 Biden-era TFB reevaluation that boosted benefits by 21%. They emphasized that benefits would still adjust annually for inflation. Democrats, including Crockett, strongly opposed it, calling it a real cut that would harm low-income families, children, and rural communities. During the committee markup, not a standard hearing on May 23, 2024, Crockett spoke critically of the SNAP provisions and urged Republicans to remove the cuts. There is video evidence of her remarks calling on colleagues to end their crusade to cut SNAP benefits. The markup was contentious and partisan, with Democrats highlighting the $30 billion reduction, but no reports or videos show a one-on-one grilling of Thompson by Crockett where he admits the number under pressure or stammers through deflections. Why the script seems fictional. The detailed dialogue, e.g., Crockett interrupting with "That's not what I asked," Thompson shifting in his seat, looking to staff, turning red, pivoting to Trump debt, etc., matches no transcripts, news reports, or footage. Real exchanges in the markup were more general debates or statements, not a pointed back and forth like this. The script amplifies partisan talking points, Democrats framing it as undeniable cuts harming the needy, Republicans as efficiency reforms. But the dramatic masterclass in dismantling personal showdown didn't happen. Similar partisan videos often exaggerate or invent exchanges for engagement, e.g., destroys or owns thumbnails. Extended and properly punctuated version. Below is your provided text, now fully punctuated with proper grammar, paragraphs, dialogue formatting, and extended length. I've added descriptive details, context, transitions, and elaboration on themes, for example policy impacts, political hypocrisy, SNAP importance, to make it longer while preserving the original narrative style and tone. Music fades in dramatically. Why did Jasmine ask him for a number he refused to say out loud? Because the moment he admitted it, his entire argument collapsed and she knew it. Before we break down how Jasmine Crockett cornered Rep. Glenn Thompson with a single question that left him stammering in front of the entire Agriculture Committee, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This confrontation is a masterclass in how to dismantle talking points with facts someone doesn't want to acknowledge. Like, comment, and share if you're ready for more accountability moments. The House Agriculture Committee hearing room has a particular atmosphere that's different from the more famous Judiciary or Oversight Committees. It's less about constitutional showdowns and more about policy in the weeds, crop subsidies, conservation programs, nutrition assistance. The Farm Bill debates happen here, massive pieces of legislation that affect everything from corn prices in Iowa to food stamps in Philadelphia. Most of the time, these hearings are technical, wonky, the kind of thing that agriculture lobbyists follow closely, but that rarely makes national news. But every once in a while, when the politics of food assistance collide with broader debates about government spending and who deserves help, these hearings can become flashpoints. Today was shaping up to be one of those days. The committee was debating the Republican Farm Bill proposal, and the tension in the room was palpable from the opening statements. Democrats were accusing Republicans of hiding massive cuts to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, what most people still call food stamps, behind technical language and budget accounting tricks. Republicans were insisting that their bill was cost-neutral, that they were simply making the program more efficient, and that accusations of cuts were Democratic fear-mongering designed to score political points. Rep. Glenn G.T. Thompson sat near the center of the Republican side, looking confident and prepared. The Pennsylvania congressman had been on the Agriculture Committee for years, had chaired it during the last Republican majority, and considered himself an expert on farm policy, and nutrition programs. He'd been one of the primary architects of the Republican Farm Bill proposal, and he'd spent the morning defending it with the practiced ease of someone who thought he understood the issues better than his critics. Thompson had just finished a statement about how the Republican proposal would strengthen SNAP for those who truly need it while eliminating waste and fraud. That's when Jasmine Crockett, sitting several seats down on the Democratic side, raised her hand for recognition. The committee chairman, looking slightly reluctant, he could probably sense this wasn't going to be a friendly exchange, acknowledged her. Crockett didn't ease into it. "Mr. Thompson, I've been listening to you and your colleagues talk all morning about how your farm bill doesn't cut SNAP, how it's just about efficiency and integrity. But I'm looking at the Congressional Budget Office analysis of your proposal, and it tells a very different story. So, I have a simple question. According to CBO, how much does your bill reduce SNAP spending over 10 years? Thompson shifted slightly in his seat, the confidence flickering just for a moment. "Well, Congresswoman, the CBO score is based on certain assumptions." "That's not what I asked," Crockett interrupted smoothly. "I asked for the number. CBO analyzed your bill. They calculated the reduction in SNAP spending. What's the number?" Thompson tried a different approach. "The bill is designed to be cost-neutral overall by reallocating resources." "Mr. Thompson," Crockett's voice was patient but firm, like a teacher asking a student to answer the actual question rather than the one they wished had been asked. "I'm not asking about overall cost neutrality. I'm asking specifically about SNAP, the CBO number. How much does your bill cut from SNAP over 10 years? The room was getting quieter. Other committee members were paying closer attention now. Journalists in the back straightened up. Thompson looked at the Republican staff director as if hoping for some procedural intervention. But none came. He was going to have to answer. "The CBO projection shows a reduction of approximately $30 billion. $30 billion, Crockett repeated, making sure everyone heard it clearly and letting the figure hang in the air. "So when you've been saying all morning that there are no cuts to SNAP, what you actually mean is there's a $30 billion reduction. But you're calling it something else. Is that accurate?" Thompson's face was starting to redden. "Congresswoman, you're mischaracterizing the policy. We're not cutting benefits for people who are truly eligible. You're cutting $30 billion from the program," Crockett said flatly. "That's not a characterization. That's math. CBO says your bill reduces SNAP spending by $30 billion over 10 years. That's a cut. You can dress it up with language about eligibility and efficiency, but the bottom line is $30 billion fewer dollars going to help people afford food. Why can't you just say that plainly?" Thompson tried to pivot to his prepared talking points about work requirements and able-bodied adults, but Crockett wasn't letting him escape. "Mr. Thompson, let me ask you something else. You represent Pennsylvania's 15th district. Is that correct?" Thompson nodded wearily, clearly uncertain where this was going. "Rural district, lots of small towns, some economically struggling areas," Crockett continued, building her case methodically. "What percentage of your constituents rely on SNAP benefits? Do you know?" Thompson hesitated. "I'd have to look at the exact numbers." "Let me help you out," Crockett said, pulling up data on her tablet with calm precision. "According to USDA statistics, approximately 14% of your district receives SNAP benefits. That's higher than the national average. In fact, rural districts like yours tend to have higher SNAP utilization rates than many urban districts. So, when you cut $30 billion from SNAP, you're cutting a program that disproportionately helps your own constituents. Does that seem like good representation to you?" The Democratic side of the committee was starting to look energized. The Republican side looked uncomfortable. Thompson was visibly struggling to formulate a response that didn't sound like he was arguing against helping his own district. "Well, our bill includes provisions that help rural communities in other ways." "Your bill cuts $30 billion from SNAP," Crockett repeated, not letting him change the subject. "I'm not asking about other provisions. I'm asking about the specific impact of cutting food assistance when your district relies on that program more than most. How do you justify that to constituents who are going to lose benefits or see their benefits fail to keep up with rising food costs?" Thompson tried another angle, one that Republicans often used when backed into corners on spending issues. "Congresswoman, I appreciate your concern for fiscal responsibility. Perhaps you could explain how Democrats plan to address the massive national debt that programs like SNAP contribute to." It was a trap question, an attempt to paint Crockett and Democrats as fiscally reckless for opposing cuts. But Crockett had been waiting for exactly this deflection, and her response was devastating. "Oh, you want to talk about the national debt? Let's talk about it, Mr. Thompson." How much did the national debt increase during the Trump administration? Thompson looked trapped. I don't have those figures in front of me. Let me help you again, Crockett said, her tone making clear she'd come prepared for exactly this line of argument. The national debt increased by approximately $8 trillion during the Trump administration. $8 trillion. And you voted for the policies that caused most of that increase, the tax cuts that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy and corporations, the spending increases that weren't offset. You voted for all of that. So please don't lecture me about fiscal responsibility while you're trying to take food assistance away from struggling families in your own district to pay for tax cuts you gave to billionaires. The room erupted in murmurs. Several Democratic members were nodding vigorously. Republican members were conferring urgently with staff. Thompson looked like he desperately wanted to be anywhere else. He tried to respond something about different economic circumstances and necessary investments, but his voice had lost the confident authority it had carried earlier. Crockett wasn't finished. She pressed on, expanding on the broader hypocrisy. Here's what I don't understand, Mr. Thompson. When we're talking about tax cuts for the wealthy, fiscal responsibility doesn't seem to matter. When we're talking about defense spending increases hundreds of billions more, fiscal responsibility doesn't seem to matter. But when we're talking about helping people, particularly poor people, particularly people in rural areas that your party claims to represent, suddenly we need to find cuts. Suddenly $30 billion in food assistance is unaffordable. Why is that? Why is helping families buy groceries the one area where we can't afford to invest, but everything else gets a pass? Thompson tried to argue that the situations were different, that defense spending and tax policy couldn't be compared to nutrition assistance programs. But he was clearly on the defensive now, speaking in fragments rather than complete arguments. Crockett had taken control of the exchange completely. She pressed her advantage one final time. Let me give you one more number to think about, Mr. Thompson. Do you know how much we spend annually on SNAP, the total program cost? Thompson shook his head slightly, clearly unwilling to guess after being corrected on previous numbers. It's about $80 billion annually, Crockett said. Sounds like a lot, right? But that's less than 1% of the federal budget. Less than 1% to help feed 40 million Americans, including millions of children, elderly people, and disabled individuals. And you're telling me we can't afford that? But we can afford to add $8 trillion to the debt through tax cuts for people who are already wealthy? She leaned forward, and when she spoke again, her voice carried both moral force and legal precision. Here's the reality, Mr. Thompson. SNAP isn't a handout. It's not wasteful spending. It's one of the most effective anti-poverty programs we have. It reduces food insecurity. It helps children perform better in school. It keeps families stable during economic hardship. The return on investment is actually positive. Every dollar spent on SNAP generates about $1.50 in economic activity, boosting local grocery stores, farmers, and rural economies. So cutting $30 billion from this program isn't fiscal responsibility. It's fiscal stupidity. It's harming your own constituents and your own district's economy to make an ideological point about government spending. Thompson attempted one final defense. Congresswoman, our bill simply ensures that people who can work do work. Your bill cuts $30 billion from food assistance, Crockett said, her patience clearly wearing thin. Stop hiding behind rhetoric about work requirements and just own what you're doing. You're taking food assistance away from people who need it. $30 billion worth. That's going to hurt people. It's going to hurt children. It's going to hurt elderly people. It's going to hurt people in your district. And no amount of talk about efficiency or integrity changes that basic fact. The silence that followed was profound. Thompson had no response left. He'd been systematically dismantled, his talking points exposed as hollow, his fiscal responsibility argument revealed as hypocritical, his claim of no cuts demolished by the simple fact that CBO said the bill cut $30 billion. He sat there, visibly uncomfortable, while Crockett gathered her papers with the calm satisfaction of someone who'd accomplished exactly what she'd set out to do. The committee chairman, sensing that this exchange had gone as badly as possible for the Republican side, quickly moved to recognize another member for questioning. But the damage was done. The narrative that Republicans had been carefully constructing all morning, that their farm bill was reasonable, that it strengthened SNAP rather than cutting it, that concerns about cuts were just Democratic exaggeration, had been completely destroyed by one congresswoman asking simple questions and refusing to accept anything less than direct answers. Within hours, clips of the exchange were circulating widely. Crockett destroys Thompson on SNAP cuts was trending on political social media. Anti-hunger advocacy organizations were sharing the video with commentary about how this was exactly the kind of accountability they needed from members of Congress. Even some conservative commentators acknowledged that Thompson had been thoroughly outmaneuvered. Thompson's office released a statement later that day claiming the exchange had been taken out of context and that the Congresswoman had misrepresented the Republican Farm Bill proposal. But the statement couldn't explain away the central fact that Crockett had established. CBO said the bill cut $30 billion from SNAP, and Thompson had admitted it. Everything else was just spin. For Jasmine Crockett, the confrontation was another example of her approach to congressional oversight. Come prepared with facts. Ask direct questions. Don't accept evasive answers. Force people to acknowledge realities they'd prefer to obscure. She hadn't needed to yell or perform outrage. She just needed to know her numbers better than her opponent did and be willing to pursue the truth even when it was politically uncomfortable. In a follow-up interview, she was asked why she pressed Thompson so hard on the $30 billion figure. Her answer encapsulated why the exchange had been so effective, because he was trying to convince people that cutting $30 billion from food assistance wasn't actually cutting $30 billion from food assistance. He was counting on people not paying close enough attention to notice the contradiction. My job is to pay attention and to make sure the public knows what's actually being proposed versus what's being claimed. $30 billion in cuts is $30 billion in cuts, no matter what you call it. And people deserve to know that before this bill gets voted on. If this breakdown of how Jasmine Crockett used simple math, persistent questioning, and unyielding preparation to corner a congressman who thought he could hide cuts behind technical language showed you why precision and accountability matter in political debates, hit that like button and subscribe for more moments when the truth cuts through the spin. Drop a comment telling us, do you think politicians should be allowed to claim no cuts when the nonpartisan CBO says there are cuts? And share this with anyone who needs to see how asking the right questions can expose what powerful people want to hide. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next one. Music fades in dramatically with intense orchestral swells underscoring the stakes of political accountability. Why did Jasmine Crockett relentlessly pursue that one crucial number from Glenn Thompson, a figure he desperately avoided uttering aloud? Because the instant he acknowledged it, his carefully crafted defense of the Republican Farm Bill proposal would crumble entirely, and she knew it all too well. In the unforgiving arena of congressional oversight, where billions in public funds hang in the balance and the lives of millions are affected, this pinpoint question exposed the chasm between rhetoric and reality. Before we plunge even deeper into this extended breakdown of how Rep. Jasmine Crockett masterfully dismantled Rep. Glenn G.T. Thompson's arguments during the contentious House Agriculture Committee markup of the 2024 Farm Bill proposal, forcing him to confront the undeniable $30 billion reduction in SNAP funding while highlighting the hypocrisy in fiscal priorities, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the conversation. This isn't merely a heated exchange, it's an exemplary lesson in wielding facts as weapons against evasion, in refusing to let spin obscure hard truths, and in advocating fiercely for the vulnerable. If breakdowns like this rooted in preparation, precision, and moral clarity resonate with you, comment your thoughts on whether politicians should ever be allowed to reframe cuts as efficiency, and share this far and wide. Let's unpack why moments of true accountability like this are rare but essential in our democracy. To grasp the full weight of this confrontation, we must expand our lens on the Farm Bill's storied history and its profound evolution. Originating in the Dust Bowls and economic despair of the 1930s with the Agricultural Adjustment Act, the Farm Bill was born as emergency relief for struggling farmers. It provided price supports, soil conservation incentives, and mechanisms to stabilize volatile markets. Over decades, it morphed into a sprawling omnibus package, incorporating rural development, research, trade promotion, and critically since the 1970s, nutrition assistance. This inclusion of what became SNAP transformed it from purely agricultural policy into a dual pillar, supporting producers while combating hunger. Today, the nutrition title dominates, often comprising over 80% of projected spending, reflecting America's ongoing battle with food insecurity amid wealth disparities. The 2018 Farm Bill, extended multiple times due to partisan gridlock, finally received another one-year reprieve in the American Relief Act of 2025, signed into law on December 21, 2024. This extension runs through September 2025, buying time amid disasters and economic pressures, but leaving orphan programs unfunded and uncertainty looming. As we sit here in December 2025, with the extension in place, the push for a new 5-year bill intensifies. complicated by shifting congressional majorities and lingering debates over SNAP role. The Republican-led proposal in 2024, the Farm, Food, and National Security Act H.R. 8467, spearheaded by Chairman Glenn Thompson, sought to modernize supports amid inflation and global competition. It boosted commodity reference prices, enhanced crop insurance, and reallocated funds, drawing fire for capping Thrifty Food Plan TFP updates, which the CBO scored as a $30 billion SNAP reduction over 10 years. Republicans framed this as preventing unchecked expansions, nodding to the 2021 Biden-era TFP reevaluation that raised benefits to 21%, emphasizing cost neutrality, work incentives, and fraud reduction. Democrats countered that it constituted real cuts, eroding benefits purchasing power and harming families, especially in rural areas. The House Agriculture Committee's markup on May 23-24, 2024, stretched into the wee hours, a marathon of amendments, partisan volleys, and high drama. The room in the Longworth building hummed with lobbyists, staffers, advocates from Feeding America to the American Farm Bureau, and C-SPAN cameras capturing every tense moment. Chairman Thompson, a seasoned rural Pennsylvanian with a background in health services and deep committee tenure, defended his bill as balanced and farmer-focused. Enter Rep. Jasmine Crockett, the dynamic Texas Democrat and former civil rights lawyer, whose prosecutorial prowess has earned her national attention. Representing an urban district with food access challenges, Crockett arrived prepared, data in hand, determined to spotlight impacts on everyday Americans. As debate heated on the nutrition title, Crockett sought recognition. The atmosphere thickened. Colleagues sensed confrontation brewing. Mr. Chairman, I've listened intently to claims that this bill imposes no cuts to SNAP, that it's purely about efficiency, integrity, and targeting aid to the truly needy. Crockett began, her voice steady and incisive. Yet the CBO's nonpartisan analysis contradicts that. My question is direct. Over 10 years, how much does your proposal reduce SNAP spending, per the CBO? Thompson, composed but cautious, replied, Congresswoman, the CBO operates on baselines and assumptions that don't fully capture our intent. Not the question, Crockett interjected calmly. The number. CBO scored your bill. What's the reduction? He pivoted. Overall, the bill achieves cost neutrality through smart reallocations, bolstering farm safety nets. Mr. Thompson, she pressed, teacher-like in her insistence, I'm asking solely about SNAP CBO projected impact. The figure for reduced spending? Eyes turned. The room hushed. Thompson conferred briefly with aides, then admitted, approximately $30 billion. $30 billion, Crockett reiterated, amplifying it. So assertions of no cuts actually mean a $30 billion downgrade, relabeled as reform? Thompson reddened slightly. That's a mischaracterization. We protect eligible recipients. This curbs future arbitrary hikes. It's math, not mischaracterization, Crockett countered. CBO confirms $30 billion less for food aid. Dressing it in eligibility talk doesn't alter fewer dollars for groceries. Why not admit it transparently? Thompson shifted to work requirements for able-bodied adults, touting self-sufficiency. Crockett redirected personally. Your Pennsylvania 15th District rural, economically challenged. What SNAP reliance percentage among constituents? He demurred. I'd need exact figures. USDA data. 14% above national average, she supplied. Rural districts often higher due to seasonal work, remoteness. Your $30 billion cut, it's a program vital to your voters. Good representation? Democrats invigorated, Republicans uneasy. Thompson touted rural provisions elsewhere. Not the point, Crockett persisted. This slashes food aid where your district needs it most: families, kids in struggling towns. Justification for constituents facing reduced benefits? Thompson invoked fiscal responsibility. With debt soaring, how do Democrats justify unsustainable entitlements? Crockett pounced. Debt talk? Trump era added $8 trillion. You voted for tax cuts favoring wealthy, unoffset spending. Don't preach austerity while cutting aid for your district's poor to fund billionaire breaks. Gasps, nods, frantic Republican huddles. Thompson mumbled economic contexts. Crockett escalated. Tax cuts for rich? No debt worry. Defense billions? Fine. But feeding poor rural folks your base suddenly unaffordable? Why the double standard? More fragments from Thompson. Crockett delivered stats. SNAP annual cost $80-120 billion, 1-2% budget, feeding 40+ million including kids, elderly, disabled. Economic multiplier, $1.50-1.80 activity per dollar. Cutting $30 billion harms economies, yours included, not responsibility, stupidity for ideology. Final Thompson plea, promotes work dignity. On the $30 billion cut, Crockett concluded, it hurts people, kids, seniors, your district. Rhetoric doesn't change facts. Profound silence. Thompson deflated, Crockett poised. Chairman advanced agenda, but damage irreversible. Republican no cuts, strengthen snap narrative shattered by admitted figure. Clips exploded online, advocacy amplified, even conservatives noted outmaneuvering. Thompson's statement claimed context misrepresentation, but CBO $30 billion irrefutable. Crockett exemplified oversight, facts first, direct queries, no evasion tolerance. No theatrics, just superior preparation. In interviews, he gambled on inattention to contradiction. I ensure public sees proposals vs claims. $30 billion cuts are cuts. As 2025 unfolds, Farm Bill extended, but debates rage, larger SNAP threats in budgets, disaster aid offsets. Crockett stand endures, reminder that persistence with truth exposes hidden agendas. This saga illustrates why vigilance matters. Policy affects real lives, from Pennsylvania farms to Texas food banks. If this exhaustive exploration of fact-driven accountability moved you, like, subscribe, comment on political euphemisms for cuts, share for awareness. Truth prevails when demanded.